So we're going to be starting our unit on transformations, and you can see here I have a little bit of an illustration about transformations and what falls underneath them. So transformations is the umbrella word where all of those types of transformations fall underneath. So reflections, translations, dilations, rotations are all types of transformations. Today's lesson is going to be dealing with reflections, and then we're going to be doing translations and maybe a little bit of dilation, but rotations not this year. So let's get started. This is a lot of information right here, so I'm just going to talk through it. You can come back and look at this at any time, but don't worry about taking notes with this right now. I'm just going to talk through it. So a reflection, which is what we're working with today, can be thought of as a folding or a flipping over a line of reflections. So the original object is called the pre-image and the reflection is called the image. And so the image is usually labeled using prime symbols. So you'll notice that each one of these has a little, what I call a tick mark next to them. That's called a prime mark. And that indicates that that is the new image based on the pre-image. So if you see those little tick marks on the vertices of your image, you know that that is the reflection, not the object that was reflected. The key things about a reflection is the image is the same shape and the same size. So in other words, it doesn't change size, or it doesn't go from a triangle to a square. It looks exactly the same. It is just flipped or reversed over this line of reflection. And it is the same distance from the line of reflection. So think of it as if you're looking at yourself in a mirror, your image, if your nose was touching the mirror, your image is not way off in the background. The image also has its nose touching the mirror, and you are the same size and the same shape. So a reflection is just the image, but in kind of reverse, because if you look at a mirror, everything is done in reverse. So we're going to be flipping things or reflecting objects over the x-axis, the y-axis, and diagonal axes, and also over random lines of reflection. But we're just going to start with the x-axis. And again, a lot of information, but you can just look at these images and see that here is my original image because it does not have the tick mark. So that's considered the pre-image. And then these have the tick mark by the letter. So you can see that it is the same distance from the line of reflection because we are reflecting over the over the x-axis. And so it just did an exact flip. It's the same size, the same shape. And if you look at the coordinate pairs, so let's look at this coordinate pair for B. It is 1, 4, but B prime is 1, -4. So when you flip over the x-axis, it's your y value that changes in your coordinate pair. And that should kind of make sense because you're not moving left or right, you're moving up and down. So B was 4 spots away in the pre-image, and so B prime is 4 spots away in the opposite direction. So when you flip over the x-axis, it's your y value that changes. So let's just come down here and do one. So I'm just going to go ahead and plot these points. So A is at 2, 3. Remember, you always go X first, then Y. So I'm going to come over 2 and go up 3, and I'm going to put a point, and I'm going to label it A. And then B is going to be 5, 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. There's my B. Make sure you label them. And then C is 3, 5. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to move my A. I guess I didn't realize that it was going to be right in the same spot. So, whoops. Here's my C, and I'm going to relabel this A. Then I'm just going to go ahead and connect them and form my triangle. So now I'm going to reflect over the x-axis. And if I wanted to write these out, my A prime would be 2, -3, because now instead of being up in the quadrant 1, it's going to be actually be in quadrant 4. So B prime is 5, negative 3, and C prime is 3, negative 5. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'll do that in a different color. So A is going to be 2, negative 3. So here's my A prime. Make sure you mark that. My B is going to be 5, negative 3. So that's going to be right here. There's my B prime. And then C prime is going to be 3, negative 5. So my C is going to be right here. So when I connect them, you can see I just have the same image. It just is in reverse on the other side. So the next one we're going to do, and again, a lot of writing. You can come back and look at this at some other time. I'm just going to kind of go through this real quickly. This is a reflection over the y-axis. So when you think about that, now I'm flipping left to right because this is my y-axis. So I'm flipping left to right, and you can see that here is my image because it has the prime marks on the vertices. So when you flip over the y-axis, it's your x that changes because you're flipping left to right, not up and down. So let's just do some. So here we go. I'm going to plot these first. So x is at negative 4, negative 3. So here's my x. Y is at negative 5, negative 2. Whoops, I always seem to put those in the wrong spot, don't I? So here's my x. There's my y. And then z is at negative 2, negative 3. So it's kind of an odd shape, but here we go. It's a triangle. Okay, so here we go. That's a triangle. So then I'm going to go ahead and do these and flip them over the y-axis, because see right here it says I'm flipping over the y, which means my x is going to change because now I'm flipping up and down. So now instead of having a negative 4 on my x, I'm going to have a positive 4, but I'm still going to keep my y value the same. And then my y, I'm just going to do the opposite because, again, I'm flipping over. Oh, you know what? I went negative 2. Doggone it. No wonder that was such a strange thing. I'm going to start over again. I apologize. I read that wrong. So x is negative 4. Y is negative 5, positive 2. That's why it was such a strange looking thing. There's my y. And then my z is negative 2, negative 3. There we go. That makes better sense to me. Now we can do it. And that's my z. Sorry about that. So here's my x prime. Now it's positive 4, negative 3. My y prime is going to be positive 5, 2. And then my z is going to be positive 2, negative 3. So let's go ahead and do that. So put that prime mark right here. So then 4, negative 3. So now I'm going to come on the other side of my y-axis to 4, negative 3. And you can see it just sort of moved over that y-axis. And then this is going to be 5, positive 2. So here's my y prime. And then my z is going to be 2, negative 3. So here's my z prime. So you can see it just flipped over that y-axis. Again, a lot of things, you can come back and read this at some point, but the line of reflection is not always necessarily your x or y axis. It could be just a random line drawn on your coordinate plane. So this one, the line of reflection is right here. And so the line of reflection in this case would be written as x equals negative 2 because it is passing through the x-axis. If it was a horizontal line like this, and that was your line of reflection, it would say y equals negative 4. So the line of reflection indicates which axis it is crossing. And so you can see again, though, here's my new image because it has the prime marks on it. So let's just do this. And in these, there's no x or y flips. You're really just going to be counting how far over the line of reflection it goes. Because remember I said if you're looking at yourself in a mirror, your nose is touching the mirror and so is your reflection. So this is going to be the same thing. If you took a step back, your reflection would take a step back. So when you're looking at plotting these, you're going to plot them as if the line of reflection is not there, but then you're going to reflect over that line of reflection. So this first one, M, is at 2, 5. So here's my M. N is at 5, 7. So here's my N. And then my P is at 8, 3. So here's my P. And this one is a little interesting because it straddles that line of reflection. So it sits on either side of it. But that doesn't deter us at all. We're just going to count how far away everything is and do the opposite of it. So if I'm looking at M, M is one spot away from the line of reflection. So M prime is going to be one spot away in the other direction. So you're just going in the opposite direction. So then if I look at N, N is 2 spots away from the line of reflection. So N prime is going to be 2 spots in the other direction. And then P, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots away. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots away in the other direction. And you kind of see what happens to it. I'll do it in blue so you can see a little better. But here it just kind of flops on itself. Whoops, I missed. Just kind of flops on itself. So the line of reflection, if it runs through it, it sort of anchors it and makes it flop back and forth. But when it's a reflection over a random line, you're just counting how many spaces away it is. Okay, so then this one, these are diagonal lines and they have a specific name. So this one, the line is called y equals x. And this one is y equals negative x. This one over here, the y equals x, is a positively sloped line, and y equals negative x is a negatively sloped line. So the rules are kind of the same. For the y equals x, you're just going to flip, you're just going to flip the coordinates. So in other words, if you're looking at this, if A is negative 4, negative 2, A prime is negative 2, negative 4. So you just take them and flip them. You don't change the sign on them, you just change their location. So x becomes y, and y becomes x. With the y equals negative x, not only do you flip them, but you change the sign to the opposite. So here you have negative 4, negative 2 for A, but A prime is positive 2, positive 4. So not only did you flip them, but you flipped the signs. So here you can see x becomes negative y and y becomes negative x. And you can reference these back when you're doing your assignment for the day. So let's just do one real quick. I always find it's helpful to rewrite the plots before you try and do it. So I'm just going to go ahead and plot these 2, 5. Whoops, I didn't want to be in that one. Whoops, for heaven's sakes. I want to be in this color. So I'm going to do 2, 5. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here's my A. It's S. My T is negative 4, 3. So negative 4, 1, 2, 3. So here's my T. And then my U is negative 3, negative 1. So negative 3, negative 1. Here's my U. These are a little tricky. It's not like you can just look at it and count how many it's away. I think it's way easier if you actually rewrite the plot. So, or rewrite the coordinate pairs just using that rule. So the rule with this one is you're just switching them. So now S prime becomes 5, 2. T prime becomes, T prime becomes 3, negative 4. And U prime becomes negative 1, negative 3. So let's kind of see what happens with those. I'll do them in red. So S prime becomes 5, 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. So there's my S prime. T prime becomes 3, negative 4. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's my T prime. And then U prime becomes negative 1, negative 3. So negative 1, 1, 2, 3. So there's my U prime. So you can see it flipped over that line of reflection, okay? And it's kind of a strange thing. Did I do that one right? I did not. Oh, for crying out loud. Let me just switch this U here real quick. U is negative 1, negative 3. I went on positive 1, so negative 1, 1, 2, 3. There we go. That one looks better. So you can see it does kind of just flip over it. It doesn't twist or anything. It just sort of flips over. So then let's look at y equals negative x. So now we've got that negatively sloped line. And the rule on this one is that you flip and change the sign. So let's just plot this one first. So s is at 2, 5. So here's my s. T is at negative 4, 3. So there's T. And then U is at negative 3, negative 1. So we're working with that same shape. We're just going to see what happens. And this one's kind of interesting because it does straddle that line of reflection. So let's go ahead and rewrite these. So again, I think it's easiest if you rewrite. So not only am I going to flip them, I'm going to change the signs. So because 2 and 5 were positive, now they're negative. So my T, I'm going to flip them and then flip the signs. So now that 4 becomes a positive and the 3 becomes a negative. And then here I'm going to flip them and change the sign. So those are now positive. So let's go ahead and plot those. So I'm going to go negative 5, negative 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. Here's my S prime. And then T is negative 3, positive 4. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's my T prime. And then U becomes positive 1, positive 3. So positive 1, 1, 2, 3. And here's my U. And when you redraw it, you can see, that it's the same shape. Sorry about that. My lines aren't very straight, but you can see it just sort of flips on itself. It's like the line of reflection is this stick that goes through it and it just flops back and forth. So come back and make reference to these, come back and fill in your notes. I know that went really fast. We're going to do a couple on your assignment just to kind of see how things go. If you have any questions, please reach out.